All right, Huffman here again. Um, I don't know that many of you watched that first video. I think I didn't do the settings right. Um, I don't have any way to test it because I don't have a Chromebook from school, so I don't know what you can see and what you can't see. It's extremely frustrating to me. I've been working, probably put 10 hours trying to figure out how to do these darn videos. Um, I'd like to do more of them because I think it helps some people. Uh, but I'm not pulling it off. But I'm not. It's not because I'm not trying. Um, so we'll see if this one works. I'm going to try to make this intro really quick to chapter 2 because I have a very important topic I want to talk about at the end for the last part of this video. Um, Also, I told you I was going to give you another assignment this week, a short assignment today, um, and I decided not to do that. I like the assignment. I think it's a good assignment. Um, I think it would be better if we were in class and it's something that we could discuss. It was looking at friendship and the different types of friendship um, to help us kind of analyze George and Lenny's friendship and the role that friendship plays in the story. Um, but I don't think it's vital to do what we need to do. And so let's just keep moving with the story. And I won't make you do that work. Um, so, Chapter 1, we were introduced to George and Lenny. We got to hear or see kind of a little bit of their relationship, the dynamic between the two. And it's clear that George is kind of the leader. A lot of you called Lenny very dumb. Um, uh, um, I don't remember some of the other words you used for Lenny, but it's clear that Lenny has maybe some sort of disability, and George is taking care of him. And they have this relationship that they travel together and work together. But within that relationship, they certainly have an interesting way of getting along. And it doesn't always seem like George is nice, because he's not. But what they do have is something that they share, and that's this idea of owning their own ranch. And it seems to be, it's not a new idea, right? It's something that they've talked about before, obviously, because Lenny has the whole thing memorized. And we're not really sure what George thinks of the idea, but some of you pointed out that he got really frustrated toward the end of telling that story, and that Lenny was super excited, but George kind of cut it off, and he was like, I got stuff, I got to do other things, I got to think about other things. He got a little frustrated, and some of you pointed out that indicated maybe he didn't think that this dream was really a possibility, and that it bothered him. And I'm not going to tell you if that's right or wrong. I'm just saying some of you pointed that out, and I thought that was a really good observation. Now, I asked you to look for topics that were brought up over and over again. Man, you came up with a lot of them, from Lenny's disability to the ranch, the fact that they were traveling together, Lenny liking mice. It is called Of Mice and Men. But here are the ones that I felt stood out, that I know are going to continue. and these were all pointed out by you, and you pointed out the idea of friendship, and being together, or the opposite of that. One or two of you pointed out that being alone would be the opposite of that, loneliness. And there was a very strong clue, foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is when the author gives a hint of what's going to happen. And at one point, when George begins that story, he starts it off laying under the stars there, and he says, guys like us that work on ranches are the loneliest guys in the world. And where are they going the next day? They're going to a ranch, right? And so Steinbeck is giving you a little heads up. We're about to meet some pretty lonely people. So I thought the fact that a few of you grabbed onto that was pretty good reading right there. The goal of having their own place. This is a huge part of this story, and it's the idea that they share, these friends who are together, as we see, share something. This dream. And they've talked about it a lot. In exquisite detail, right down to the color of the rabbits. And, so what role is that going to play in the story? How is that going to stand out in this story? And I can assure you that it does. Being poor or being in poverty. There's no wealthy people in this story, except I guess you could count the owner of the ranch, the boss, and his son, who's the boss's son. We'll meet them in the next chapter. But that means pretty much no one else really has money to speak of. It is the Great Depression, and these people are ranch workers, and there's not a lot of work on the ranches. So that's an issue, being poor or being in poverty. Poverty, if you're unfamiliar with that term or not sure what it means, it basically means living without enough money to afford the basic necessities of life. So living without being able to feed yourself, put clothes on your back, pay the heating bill, pay to have a roof over your head. Those things combined create a situation of poverty. And some people in this country live in extreme poverty. And it's kind of amazing that we're the wealthiest country in the world, and we have so many people living in serious poverty in this country. Even in our neighborhoods. So that's a very real issue then. It's also a very real issue now. The last thing that was brought up several times, is the idea of a person being in control of another person. So, having power over somebody, or multiple people. We can compare that. Your parents have power over you. The teacher has power in the classroom. The principal has power over the school. He tells me what to do. It's very rare that we're in situations where people share power. And usually there's a hierarchy, a top to bottom kind of structure of our society. And usually people don't like it when other people have power over them. it's hard to deal with. And we'll see how that plays out. Okay, chapter 2. Little more action in chapter 2, but not much. We meet the characters. Chapter 2 introduces us to all the rest of the main, or the key characters who will play a role for the rest of this novel. There's tons of characterization in this novel, or in this chapter rather, some foreshadowing, kind of hinting, pretty clear the foreshadowing, so I'm not putting anything else out there that you won't see when you read it. But we meet all of the characters, and we learn things about them sometimes before we even meet them. Well, so you're going to look for characterization of that, of those characters, and kind of give you an idea of what to expect from each character a little bit. And that kind of leads me to the last thing, the most important thing I want to talk about right now. So one of the characters we don't meet, and his name is, he is called the Stable-Buck. The Stable-Buck is the guy who takes care of the horses. That's his job. And we don't actually meet the Stable-Buck in this chapter, but he's talked about in this chapter. I'll tell you his name. His name is Crooks. We don't meet Crooks, but they talk about Crooks. And what we learn very quickly about Crooks is that he is a black man. But because this book was written in the 1930s, they use the N-word in this book more than once. And for that reason, this book is considered to be a banned book in many schools and libraries across the country. And ordinarily, I would say, I don't want to use a book with that kind of language. I'm a white guy, and that word is not my word. I don't get to use that word. Even growing up, my parents wouldn't let me use that word, but it really wasn't, kids used it in the neighborhood. And it really wasn't till even I got to college that I really understood the power of that word, what that word means, and why. It really wasn't even till I was a teacher that I understood why I, as a white man, I don't get to use that word. And not only am I okay with that, I think that's the right thing. And so I take that very seriously. And I've done a lot of reading about it, about the history of racism in our country. And my single biggest regret about this coronavirus pandemic is that for the last 5 or 6 years of my teaching now, even before I came to Reynolds, I spend fourth quarter, we look at racism. And you might think, well, why are we looking at racism in a language arts class? Well, the theme of the class for the year is the American Dream. And so it's designed to look at immigration, and then we look at poverty through this novel, and how some people can never get out of poverty and they don't get to have the American Dream. And then fourth quarter is designed to look at How is it that there are systems in place in this country, even laws that are in place in this country, and certainly cultural norms, normal things that we allow to happen in this country that could keep someone from reaching the American dream? Like, how is it that the country's supposed to be the home of the American dream, but yet this country can keep some people from reaching the American dream? And the way that we do that is through racism. And I'm sorry that we're not going to have that conversation, because it's not a one-day conversation. It's not one video. It's many intense conversations. And my former students talk about how much that means to them, has meant to them. I kid you not, I could show you the email. A student from last year emailed me yesterday to talk about a book that they are reading in honors language arts right now. And she said, "Oh my God, Huffman, it reminds me so much of everything we talked about last year, and I feel like I have this understanding of this book in a way that I wouldn't have if we hadn't had your class." And she wrote about racism, and she's Asian American, and she talked about racism right now and how it's affecting people she knows. It meant so much to me that we could have that conversation, and that she felt in some little way that I helped her understand how racism can impact very large groups of people in this country. And so we're going to meet crooks. And one of the reasons why I love this book so much is because even back in 1936, before it was published, when he was writing this book, John Steinbeck had the wisdom and the understanding of racism to create this character in this book, who is not, he is viewed in the other's eyes, and the other ranch workers, he is viewed as a black man who is not equal to them. But that's not the case in John Steinbeck's eyes. I think Crooks, he's kind of the best character in the whole book. He is so powerful. For that, I am forever thankful to John Steinbeck for having the wisdom back then to see and to create a human being this powerful in this novel, and yet still showing what he faces as he has to deal with this racism every single moment that he's awake, and probably in his dreams. It's a powerful part of this book. Racism is one of the themes in this novel. Or it's one of the topics, rather. You will create the theme of what you think the author's message is about racism. But I really bring this up because we're not going to get to talk about these things as a group. And we were going to learn about people in history like Emmett Till. If you don't know who Emmett Till is, please look him up. And once you read about what happened to Emmett Till, that 14-year-old boy from Chicago, look up Trayvon Martin. Maybe you know who Trayvon Martin is. Maybe you don't know who Trayvon Martin is. But one of the things we were going to do in class is look at how the comparison between what happened to Emmett Till and Trayvon Martin. And, Emmett Till, what happened to him happened just 10 years before I was born. what happened to Trayvon Martin happened, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And if you think, oh, that stuff doesn't happen anymore, all you have to do is look at headlines in the news today. And there was a man named Ahmaud Arbery who lived in Georgia, and he went out for a run like he did almost every day. And Ahmaud went out for a run one day, and some guys saw him running down their street, and they thought he looked out of place because of the color of his skin. And they ended up gunning him down. And it's really just now, it happened in February, and it's really just now making the news in a big way because they released a video and people are seeing what really happened. So the things that happen in this story, the racism that happened back then, back in the day, it's very real. And it affects people in ways that I can't even understand because of the color of my skin. But I try to understand. And hopefully in this book, we'll gain a little more of understanding of how racism can affect a human being. And so it's one of the most powerful things about this novel. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say on it. I have a lot more to say on it. I'm not going to use more video time right now. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying it. Like I said, it starts off slow, and it builds up. It gets pretty intense. So stick with it. I tried not to ask too many questions again this time, just a few short ones. That's all new to me. I'm working with that, actively learn, so keep doing it. And thanks. Please shoot me an email. Let me know what you think. You want to have a discussion about it? I'll try to set up a discussion format for us. But for right now, just keep reading. Read chapter 2 and stick with it. Thank you guys for sticking with all of this. I really appreciate it. All right.